Hello again. I've somehow become trapped in Minecraft, and also time travelled to roughly 13 or so years ago when the original Tekkit modpack got popular. It's a complex scenario, but I'm surprisingly okay with being here, and if I'm stuck, I might as well get building. Whilst I work on my little Minecraft house, before we get into anything technical, I'll fill you in on Tekkit, in case you never got into any of this stuff. Tekkit is one of the many Minecraft modpacks focused on automation technology that blew up in the mid-2010s. There were loads, but this is the one that I remember most fondly. It does also have just a little bit of magic, but don't worry about that too much, we're here for the tech. Maybe I'll do a Hexit video if you like this one. Now, I remember losing weeks or possibly even months of my life to Tekkit thanks to the Yogscast's multiple series in this and similar packs. But that was always multiplayer with my school friends, and I could spend weeks sitting in a park doing almost literally nothing with those folks back in the day, so was it really the mod pack that was fun or just the company? Well, let's find out. I'm actually playing Tekkit 2 here today, which is pretty damn close to the original as far as I can tell, so anyway, now that I have something resembling a home, let's do some gaming. Which in this case means mining. I remember that pretty much the first thing I want to make is a macerator, a machine that will essentially double your ores by grinding them up into dust. Checking the recipe for that though, I'll need some redstone. So in other words, poking around this ravine for surface level ores isn't going to cut it, I've got to go deeper. Before that though, I remember from childhood that I'll also need a lot of rubber. So down go some rubber tree saplings. And now it's our turn to go into the ground. After building a little mine entrance out of logs, and a short stint in the mines, which I find that I do indeed yearn for, I've got the redstone I needed to make some machinery. But it turns out I didn't actually need the redstone, because there's this. The stone macerator. A coal-powered version that works about as slowly as you'd expect, so we'll still be trying to make an electrical version as soon as possible. Right after finding the local village and stealing their entire library. I don't really know why, that just sort of felt like the right thing to do. Okay, I'm not actually just out being a hooligan, I'm hunting for rubber trees. You really do need a lot of the stuff, so getting a load of saplings planted quickly is wise. With that done, I'll make a more advanced crafting bench, which allows for more convenient bulk crafting on account of its internal inventory. Very cool. Using that, I'm quickly able to throw a generator and a standard issue macerator together. Should probably build a roof in that case. If I'm going to be playing with angry pixies, I don't want to be wet. I learned very quickly, by the way, that I can't simply mine a machine. So now I need to make another macerator, but no big deal. Learning is usually best done by making yourself look like an idiot in front of thousands of people on the internet, right? Well, whatever. I'm supposed to use a wrench for this. However, I quickly find that even with one of those, sometimes you lose the machine. Turns out you need a fancy pants power tool to guarantee the lossless removal of the machine. I did now start playing with pipes, to mixed degrees of success. Very mixed. I think I was honestly better at this stuff when I was 15, but eventually I remembered, by using Google, that extraction pipes require power, which can be delivered by a redstone engine. It requires no fuel, just a redstone signal, and will then deliver just enough power to an extraction pipe to suck out the products of maceration and deposit them into a chest. Hopefully you can see how this system is supposed to scale later on, but for the moment dust goes into the chest and then I put the dust into a furnace. Good enough for government work. Next on the docket is for me to mine quite a lot, because as lovely as this wooden cabin is, a factory it ain't. I hit bedrock before starting to poke around a few levels up from there, digging some shafts, you know the drill, and then I find some of these sapphires, which I remember make for decent tools, but then, cue the excited Minecraft voice, and also these rocks that make my eyeballs feel funny. I found a lot of things after being down there for about half an hour, a good haul of materials altogether. And in that time, the rubber trees have grown, so now it's time to give them a tidy up, exposing their little sap nodules to be sucked out with a tree tap. With these new fat quantities of materials, it's time to make a new space. We're going underground. Not full-on Mole Man style or anything, it just seems more reasonable to build down than up right now. It's going to take me a little while to build this, but the aim is fairly simple. dig a glass-roofed pit in which to do my foul works. After about an hour of doing the Minecraft, it's just about done. Got nice flooring and everything. So now I can start filling it with machinery. But I don't want to just be constantly throwing coal away to power it all, so I think it's time to get oily. Just to our northeast there's a geyser of the black gold, so I throw together a liquid fuel generator and simply run over there with a few buckets to bring it home. Obviously scooping up oil in buckets isn't exactly a long-term solution, but it will let us run the generator for now to fill up a bat box. With which we can charge my new shiny toy. An electric wrench that won't break the machines. Assuming I can figure out how to turn it on. I've built a couple of macerators and an electric furnace, and I started wiring them up all dirty-like out in the open like this, but I decided that's no way to begin and quickly neatened it all up. Cable management. Something that I'll quite happily do in Minecraft, despite absolutely refusing to do it in real life. I thought at this point about going hard to fully automate the process of dumping ores into a macerator bank that then sorts dusts into furnaces and outputs it all into chests for individual materials. It's actually quite simple to set this up and it would probably look really neat, but at the same time it doesn't really feel necessary. Over the course of a long game it probably saves a few minutes of moving stuff around, so unless you're going to a really massive scale, I just don't feel the need. I've decided that my goal on this run is to kill the Ender Dragon with my laser beam, because I remembered one night whilst waiting to fall asleep that Minecraft has in-game achievements now, and IC2 adds one to do just that. Use a mining laser to defeat the Ender Dragon. Accomplishing that, along with a load of other things, mainly that I need glowstone for anything more advanced than an electric toothpick, means we need to go to the Nether. Gathering obsidian for the portal is a simple task. We already have diamonds for a pick and there's a pool of lava very nearby. So because I'm old school, I'll make the obsidian and mine it instead of this portal casting stuff that I see folks do nowadays. And then I'll make a neat little dais for the portal and head on in. This didn't quite work right. I am in the Nether, but I cannot see. After reloading the game, I have actually spawned in properly, however I'm underground and have no return portal. Well, let's see what we can do here then. There are, I think, all of the resources I would actually need to make my return portal in here, except the wood for a crafting bench, and I didn't bring any. So, I guess I'll die. I dropped a chest to hold my gear and marked it on the map, in case I want to come back for it later, and then jumped into the lava sea. In there I found the sponsor of today's video, Dawn Apart, which, being a space colony and factory sim, feels like a very appropriate sponsor for a Tekkit video. Dawn Apart is a colony management and factory building game featuring fully destructible environments. You're sent by management to take your ship down planetside and immediately start mining for something called Lucrum 115. So I did that. I'm not sure why, but I did it. I guess I'm just a corporate drone like that. But then I realised that I actually had to keep the meat bags here alive. Sorry, I mean the prospectors. With things like housing, food, toilets. Which means mining other things instead, like copper and trees. These things, when processed and put together, can be turned into all manner of other things, including mining machines so that the meat bags don't have to do it by hand, and can instead focus on things that really matter. Like laying about on the roof, just hanging out, getting ripe. I think that how easy it is for me to just go into video mode with this game should give some indication that it's very good. I really like it, and it looks like it can get pretty wild in the later game. It's available in early access now, so go and check it out using the link in the description or pinned comment. Cheers. Now back to the Nether. Second time around, the portal worked considerably better, but it did spawn me a good long way from the original spawn, so after a short and painfully ended attempt to go and get it, I accept that I'm probably never getting that stuff back. I also learn here that the pigfolk of the Nether don't like you harvesting their shinies. I'm not sure why I never knew that, but yeah, they're very angry and there's a lot of them. So I quickly died. I made a quick set of armor and a sword and went back in for revenge. Gathering up a small group of them and building a little wall to murder them from. Yeah, what now, fuckos, that's what I thought. At this point I remember that I only ever came here for glowstone, and thankfully pigs do forget and forgive, so I'm finally allowed to get what I need and get out of here for now. With the glowy stuff we can start advancing into some more advanced machinery, like the thermal generator. I'm curious as to exactly what that does if I feed it lava, but first though I need a compressor to make carbon whatsits and fancy pants mixed metal doohickeys. I made my thermal generator, but honestly I don't really know exactly how it works. I know that I can feed it lava to generate a decent amount of power, but it also has some slightly variable passive power generation. I'm sort of trying to figure things out myself here, but I do turn to Google for some stuff, like how exactly this generator works. But I actually sort of found nothing for it. And honestly that's how it went for most things I did Google. Old mods that never really had great documentation in the first place have even worse documentation now that Google is completely useless for anything but listicles. Anyway, the long and short of it is that the passive generation of this thing fluctuates and I have no solid idea why. What I do understand is solar panels. Good and simple. So that's the road I'll be going down for now. They're painful to make in large quantities, but blissfully simple to operate. You just leave them out in the sun like an old bike, it's great. Anyway, I haven't actually made the panels yet, but I have made a mining laser. It's surprisingly easy to make, but significantly less easy to actually use, because I can't charge it in a simple bat box. I've got to make the next level of battery, an MFE. I did try making one of these charging pad thingies, which lets you charge multiple bits of equipment just by standing on it, but not a mining laser, it turns out. Ultimately what this means is that I need to go mine more diamonds. This actually involves me getting quite lost in a dungeon for a while, but whilst lost I did find this handy mining backpack. Nice. When I eventually find my way out of there, it's not long before I find what I need. A load more diamonds, so now I can go back upstairs and make my MFE. But whilst poking around here for the recipe, I stumbled into the electric jetpack. And obviously I want one of those. I don't really feel like I need to explain why. It's a jetpack, of course I want one. First though, the MFE. A big old battery. But after placing it, it didn't seem to be outputting to my machines, so I went to turn it with my fancy new wrench, and damn, it turned back into a machine block. It turns out there's a button to turn on the wrench's lossless mode and, well, I hadn't pressed it. So after quickly making another MFE, let's try that again. The next costly lesson I'm going to learn is that about different voltage levels. The MFE outputs medium voltage and my current level of machines can only accept low voltage, and therefore, a few of them have exploded. One quick transformer later and the problem is solved. We're back up and running, so now I can make my jetpack and get the mining laser charged. I remember this laser being very good, and a quick trip to the mines confirms this. It has many modes, from long range to single block, horizontal to scattershot. Scatter is quite alarmingly chaotic, but it did immediately find me some more diamonds, so that's nice. But most of the time I'll be using it in either horizontal or single block mode, which is by far the most energy efficient of the modes. And that's currently very important, owing to my absolutely pathetic energy generation. So I'll be starting to make some low voltage solar panels, which are actually a condensed block of 8 regular solar panels, where every solar panel makes 1 EU per tick, and the LV block makes 8. It's literally just smaller, that's the bonus. I actually don't really love this idea. I feel like the penalty for solar power, aside from not working at night, should be the vast quantities of space that it takes up. Being able to just pack it all down into a smaller box kind of defeats the point. But whatever, I'll play the game. I probably won't need that much power anyway. At this point I did quite a lot more mining. Just blasting away with the laser, stacking up massive piles of resources that I'll burn through alarmingly quickly, making a second LV solar panel. My next project is an upgraded Rotary macerator, which requires 7 scrap metal blades, each of which require a scrap metal chunk, each of which require 8 scrap metal. You can also make it with obsidian blades, but I assumed, perhaps wrongly, that the scrap recipe was the easier one. To get that scrap, I need to make a recycler. A rather handy machine that predictably recycles things back into their component parts. For example, this diamond horse armor that I found in a loot chest some time ago gets ground up into 5 diamonds. The amount of resources returned is somewhat random, as is the chance for this machine to give you scrap metal when you recycle raw ingots or tools. You can see here that the chance to get scrap from an ingot is allegedly 25%. This is a dice roll on which I got completely and utterly shafted. And as a result, it took me a very long time to make all of the scrap metal blades that I need for the Rotary macerator. But eventually we make it, and it's pretty neat. It starts out slow, though I think it's still faster than a standard macerator, and then it ramps up to a much faster speed if you can keep it constantly working. In fact, it works quite a lot too fast for my furnace, and causes its input to constantly spill out all over the place. There is an induction furnace that runs the same ramping speed bonus, but for now I'll just split the macerator's output between my 3 regular electric furnaces to solve the problem. So now, back to power generation, because this thing is hungry. After adding a 3rd LV solar panel to the mix, I also made a tool to check how much energy is flowing through any given cable or machine. It looks like I'm generating about 32 EU per tick right now, but that's with the coal generator running, meaning that about 22 of that is from my passive generation methods. That's not bad, but I could definitely do with more. Instead of continuing down this road though, at this point for some reason that I can only describe as an innate burning need to cause the maximum ecological disruption possible, I decided to mess with buildcraft quarries. Thankfully then, I've learned that I can use the NEI, JEI? CEI? Don't Google that one. Whatever they call this crafting recipe interface nowadays, you can use it to move items directly into a crafting grid. This massively speeds up the crafting of some of these multi-step machines like a quarry, where you have to make 4 million different levels of gear. If you don't know what these quarries are anyway, here you go. It's a simple machine that creates a frame and then steadily digs its way all the way down to bedrock, outputting everything it mines in the process. It takes buildcraft power to run, which is the type that comes out of these engines here. Currently I have 3 Stirling engines powered by coal to run it, which is both not enough power and also way too coal hungry to be useful. So instead, oil. I've been here before when I was experimenting with the liquid fuel generator, but now it's time to actually lay some pipe. Sorry, that sounds bad. It's time to get pumping. Oh, no, that's worse. It's time to start using a pipeline to transport oil from a natural source to the places we need it to run machines. There you go, much better. You can use oil to directly power many things, but it's generally much more efficient to distill it first, which is what this thing does, producing both gas and light oil. I'm just going to be using the gas to power combustion engines for the quarry for now, which also need to be water-cooled, so it's a lot more complex than I had expected. We've got a couple of combustion engines feeding power into these kinesis pipes, which feed the water pump and the quarry, which is already reaching bedrock now, despite not going that fast. I'm sure I remember seeing them go much faster than this back in the day. Anyway, I moved the quarry to dig another pit just to the right of the original, and this is where we kind of see that this isn't particularly efficient. That entire dig to bedrock didn't really produce much of value, but it's inarguably nice to make big holes in the ground, so I'm going to keep doing it. I would also say that various parts of this system behave really weirdly. The fluid pipes do strange things, and the pumps will sometimes consume a theoretically infinite pool of water and sometimes won't. I don't know, it's basically not very predictable across the board. The main thing that I was struggling with was why the quarry wouldn't eat more power though. I spent a slightly disturbing amount of time playing with this before I finally realised that it was just being limited by Buildcraft's settings. As soon as I took the limiter off, it started going absolutely sicko mode. Look at it rip! Fair enough, now I know. Anyway, with that running, let's move back into the workshop to do more useful things, like building a mass fabricator, a device that will eat pretty much any amount of power you feed it and in return make a pink goo. The pink goo is a universal matter that can be made into almost anything. I don't really see myself going crazy with UU matter in this playthrough, but there's not much reason not to set it up. I just set up a little redstone rule so that it only runs when my MFE is over halfway full. I actually did this quite a bit later, but it's fine, don't worry about it. While that cooks away in the background, I'll be once more steadily increasing our power generation, with more solar panels, which will start to strain our supply of rubber. So I quickly make a fancy pants extractor to churn through rubber tree goop more quickly. That was a confusing sentence to say. Anyway, after doing a whole lot more solar panel building, I'm now looking into making an automated tree farm. I remember liking the forestry mod back in the day. Let's see if I still do. The process involves some learning. The crafting for this mod can be a little bit different, but step 1 is to make a carpenter and a thermionic fabricator. In other words, I'm embarking down a whole nother set of crafting boxes. Which is just how it goes in these mod packs. Everything has its own set of productive little cubes. These cubes are powered by Buildcraft Power, RF, just like the Quarry, but thankfully I discovered the electric engine, which lets me convert my industrial craft electricity from the workshop into Buildcraft energy. Nice, that will make powering the forestry stuff much more simple. However, to make the arboretum that automatically farms trees, I need 2 balls of slime. And slime spawning in Minecraft is a weird thing. They just spawn in certain chunks that are determined when you make the world. There are tools that will help you figure out where those chunks are, but thankfully the minimap mod in this pack can also just highlight them. Very convenient. Less convenient is dipping my toes into some lava and burning to death. And upon making it back to the scene of my fiery demise, it seems like my jetpack was one of the unlucky items that fell into the lava and was lost. But instead of looking at this as a tragedy, let's look at it as an opportunity. There are better jetpacks. The advanced electric jetpack is quite the crafting project, requiring a lap pack, glass fiber cables, coolant for an overclocker upgrade thing, basically a lot. It took about 15 minutes in the workshop, but the result is a more powerful jetpack with a much larger battery and the capability to properly hover. Something I don't notice immediately about this jetpack is that it also provides power to other tools that I use. I was confused as to why it kept discharging when I wasn't using it, but then realised that it was because my mining laser was drawing directly from the jetpack's battery instead of its own. Anyway, back to slime hunting. I found one pretty quickly in the caves connected to my quarries, and lasered it and its little children to death for their slime balls. I needed 2 to make my machine, and that's what I got. Very good. So now in the thermionic fabricator I can make the casing required for an arboretum. But when I tried to craft that in my project bench, something went very wrong. It wouldn't give me the thing for some reason, so I thought, okay, I'll go and try it in the normal crafting bench. But when I went back down to the workshop for the materials, I realised that everything in the project bench had disappeared. That's not right. Some strange bug had deleted its contents, so after a quick inventory reconstruction session, I'll go and make the arboretum in the regular crafting bench this time. After feeding this thing a special fertilised ground called humus, some saplings, and pumping in water, it'll get to work, preparing its area and then eventually planting the rubber saplings. With a very simple piping job, it will feed extra saplings back into itself whilst storing wood and resin in a chest. Like with the macerators, you could automate this further by piping the resin directly into extractors to be turned into rubber, but I don't really feel the need to go that far. I'll just cart it around by hand. Since I started playing with forestry stuff, I thought I'd see whether or not I can use it to make a viable liquid fuel. You can turn most organic matter into biomass, and then distill that into ethanol. But thanks to the magic of editing, you get to skip this particular failure of an idea. It does work, but the amounts produced are very small and the process uses quite a lot of power itself, so I'm not really sure if the output is worth the input. But still, it was fun to try. I couldn't show you most of the experiments if I wanted to be honest, because I was accidentally recording the launcher for over an hour here. And whilst OBS was pointed at the launcher, I also started to make some nanosuit armor, as well as further upgrading my jetpack to be a compacted jetpack, which has an even larger battery, but more importantly can also be combined into an advanced nano chestplate. With all of this, I'm basically impervious to almost all sources of damage. But taking damage will drain my battery, which is what I will be using to fly and use my mining laser, so You know, I still don't really want to get hit too much. Of course, I made all of this to kill a dragon with, so now I have some work to do. Which starts with a trip to the Nether, because I need blaze rods. And I know where a Nether fortress is, so this job is very simple. Fly to fortress, kill blazes. I made a ruby sword for this just to save on some battery instead of using the laser, and I got 4 blaze rods here, then another 3 on the way back to the portal, where I also played ping pong with a ghast. I won. 7 should be more than enough to find a stronghold, but the other part of that particular puzzle is ender pearls. I already had 2 stashed away, so I made a couple of eyes of ender and got a bearing to start with. The stronghold is somewhere to our southeast. Alrighty then. Now I just hunt endermen. It's a simple enough task, made even simpler by the existence of jetpacks. After a day or so of hunting, I realised that I should probably try to get the looting enchantment onto a sword to speed the job up a bit, and after a couple of failed attempts, I got it. So it's back to work. I just gathered 4 more pearls and then used them to home in further on the stronghold, and rather luckily I quickly found it, directly below this little island. Navigating the stronghold itself took a little while and didn't produce any valuable loot. I had sort of been hoping to find a chest full of ender pearls, to be honest, but anyway, here's the portal room, complete with silverfish spawner. After dealing with those, I can see that I need 8 more eyes of ender to complete the portal. So, it's back to hunting. For a good while here, my luck with pearl drops was absolutely abysmal, to the point where during the day I was searching for a village with a cleric so I could just trade for them instead. But then a string of lucky drops in a row sorted me out with the rest of the pearls that I need. So then, let's go home to charge our kit, and then go kill that there ender dragon. It may or may not surprise you to hear that I've actually never done this fight. Of course I've seen it before, but I've never actually done it. So I'm not 100% sure what I'm doing here. After shooting a laser at the dragon and seeing it do nothing, I confirmed that I need to destroy these thingies on the pillars that it keeps linking to. Typically this is done with a bow, but I don't have one of those, so I just fly up to one and hit it with my pickaxe, and find that this hurts quite a lot. Or rather, it would hurt without my armor. This might sound like a good thing, but tanking that hit drains a substantial chunk of my battery power, which is going to cause problems if I try to tank every single one of these. I should be able to destroy them with my laser, but it works kind of weirdly, and that also uses a lot of power. After some thought, I arrive at a potential solution. The solution, as usual, is getting naked. Well, mostly naked. I need to keep my chestplate on so that I can fly, but by removing the rest of my armor I can minimize the battery use from tanking the pillar explosions, and then simply heal up between each of them. Soon enough, the dragon is vulnerable, and after a pretty close call with death, I put my armor back on to start lasering it. I can't just spam beams at it, because when it's flying fast enough it will actually outrun them, and also because I need to conserve my battery. So whenever it's doing its little sit still and be vulnerable routine, I get in close and use the sword instead. However, the dragon still has over half of its health bar, and my battery is at 12%. That's not a great look. And after just 2 more shots, 7%. Yeah, really not a great look. But in another long hovering session I slice it down to much lower health, so when it flies away, my battery clinging on for dear life, with the literal final bit of power in my pack, I take the last shot and kill the dragon, falling to the ground, my own wings clipped in the process. It's done, but I'm being chased by quite a few endermen now, so I quickly bang down a golden apple to tank the damage and kill the agitated ones. Now I can collect my hard-earned XP, jump into this pool and see the credits. Well then, very good. I've enjoyed this, but let's answer my initial question. Are these mod packs still fun? Yes, of course, Minecraft is fun. Therefore, so are most Minecraft mod packs. However, you really can feel the age of the concepts that are core to Tekkit. And without wanting to sound like a spoilt modern gamer, a little bit more clear documentation would really go a long way. That being said, the bones of it are good. Automation is fun, and I really could have done a lot more of it. I basically did the equivalent of launching a rocket from a spaghetti factory in Factorio. Just enough to push it over the edge, but all being moments away from jamming up. Anyway, thank you for watching. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, consider subscribing to let me know that you want to see more of this kind of thing, and also give the video a like. It helps a lot. But whatever you do, please remain indoors. Mecha Shrek is out there. And yeah, I never really addressed it, but for some reason I'm using a Shrek skin. I have literally no idea. Until next time, goodbye.